welcome to Shred Show. I am your host, Chris Grow, and this is the internet's most stoked surfboard show. Today we have one of the most popular concave deck surfboards on the planet, as determined by you, the Shred Nation, in the Request a Board inbox at shredshow.com. If you don't know what a concave deck on a surfboard is, it's when the deck has a concave similar to what you'd normally find on the bottom of a surfboard. Can you see that there? Right there? One of the most common ways to talk about a concave deck like this is to use a skateboard as an example. On a deck like this, the concave, which goes from here and dips down and comes up on the other side, is used in flip tricks to help flip the board. While on a board like this, the concave is used to give us quicker response in turns. But the question is, can we learn anything about the performance of a concave deck surfboard turning on water through studying a skateboard that turns on an axle? I don't know. But what we can all figure out pretty easily is that when you take a big chunk of foam out of the deck to create this concave, it brings your feet closer to the water than a flat deck or a convex deck would. Some surfers say that paddling on a board like this is easier because your chest and stomach fit on the board better. Other surfers say a concave deck is easier to balance on than a deck that has convex in it. And many surfers would say that this kind of a board gives you a feeling of oneness with the wave, because when the water passes across the bottom of the board, you can almost feel it tickling your toes. I know a lot of people get really excited about concave decks, but what really excites me about this board is how it employs these unique channels. You can probably see these channels and how they're shaped back there into the back of third of the board towards the tail. Channels make a surfboard faster because of how they create lift and because of how they accelerate water flow. But when a channel is too deep, it can be really susceptible to chop on the water, and that can make the board just not work. Also, when a channel is straight, that makes the surfboard want to go straight. These channels are really unique because they are curved and because the channels are shallow. They're not really that deep. The curve means that the board can actually maneuver and it wants to do things other than go straight, and the shallow depth of the channels means that the board won't completely shut down when the conditions get messy. What that means is that this board is abnormally versatile when you compare it to other surfboards with channels that only work when the waves are good and the water's glassy and the sun's out and there's free burritos in the parking lot. That's what I call perfect. The channels on this board will have a really strong relationship to your fins because of the way that the channels run on the inside edges of the leading two fins and the quad fins. One of the things that we know about fins is that the width of the base directly relates to how much drive and speed we have coming off of bottom turns. So if we put our fin in the quad trailing position on this board, we can easily see how functionally the fin has an elongated base because of the way that the channel relates to the fin, kind of similar to the way that plants work with the sun to create photosynthesis. Except channels and fins work together to create speed and drive. That means that if you set this board up as a quad, you can probably push it into hyperdrive pretty quickly because of the way that the base of your fins will work with the channels. I think this tail design is really cool because it keeps the outline flow going all the way back to the end of the board right here. But then right in front of the rear quad trailer, we have a step rail that starts to happen right here. Can you see that? How the rail shaves down to create a step down in the rail, like right here. In my mind, that helps keep the planing area on the bottom of the board wide, coming out here through the tail, but we also have this rounded thumbtail that starts to emerge from right where the rail starts to step down. That promotes a long arc in our turns as we're turning, but because of the way that the planing area comes out here back towards the rounded thumbtail, that gives us a point where we can really push it and break out of our turns if we really want to. It's interesting to note that these channels actually occur within a double concave on the board. We can see that the double concave runs all the way out through the rear quad trailers and continues going all the way up in a mighty healthy V, and then eventually dropping out towards the thumbtail. This is really subtle and you might not be able to see it at home, but if you could look really closely at the V on this board, it actually is pretty deep right here, but then he shaves off the stringer and the foam out towards the tail to make this right here much thinner than this right here. That means that we can have a little bit of extra push up towards the lip because of the imbalance that creates right back here in the back part of the tail. The deck of this surfboard has a very strong relationship to the rails of the surfboard because since we've taken volume out of the deck to create this concave, we have to add a little bit of volume to the rails. If you feel one of these rails in a surf shop, you can tell pretty easily that the goal of these rails is to be pushed along by the water, not cut in and sink really deeply down into the water. Now as a shaper, it's very difficult to add so many features into one surfboard because every time that you add a channel or a step rail or a concave in the deck, each one of them affects the performance of the board and you have to carefully balance them all. But according to many surfers like Jarrah Tutton and others, Todd really nailed this board for turns and speed in waves that are about ankle to shoulder high. That does it for this episode. If you've ever surfed the Proctor Apache or any surfboards with a concave deck, please tell us about your experiences below. If you like the video, please click like, not the thumb, but the actual button below the video on YouTube. We really look forward to seeing you next time.